I previously talked and discussed the way that I joined the Navy and how I processed through the enlisted ranks. I'll start back, try to reiterate a little bit. When I went into 444 North Rush Street in Chicago in April of 1951, I talked to the recruiter, and he asked me, "Why do you want to come in the Navy?" And I said, "I want a career." And he had a little discussion with me and said, "Do you want to go on ships, or what would you really like to do?" And I said, "Well, I get seasick, so I'm not wild about ships." And after a discussion, he decided aviation was where I would like to go. I was designated then as a aviation recruit, and I was processed, went to Great Lakes, as I previously talked about, and got all through boot camp. I was fortunate to go directly from boot camp to a squadron at North Island Naval Air Station, and that squadron was an air transport squadron, which we talked about. And our mission was to pick up all the old World War II airplanes, take them to rework and rehab, and then take them back either to be sold to foreign countries. And during my 3.5 years there, I went from E1 to E6 in 3 years and 4 months, which was an all-time record. And then I was fortunate on a month after my 20th birthday, I was E6. A month after my 24th birthday, I was the youngest chief in the Navy. And then I progressed on when they created the E8 and A9 program, which I discussed previous, how that came about, and how the warrant program was brought back into the Navy that had been abolished, and the LDO, which was the Mustang program, a way of transiting from enlisted to an officer status with a mandatory retirement if you stayed to 30 years and a maximum grade of lieutenant commander, and you were processed out. That was so that if you became an officer, that you could not hold command authority over somebody that used to be your chief or your warrant officer in the Navy. So after 14 and a half years, I was fortunate to be the youngest warrant officer brought back. They sent the first group of 26 of us to Pensacola to go through pre-flight school, which they called knife and fork school. And we spent 3 months there learning how to be officers, and I enjoyed that. When I left there, I wound up on a number of assignments throughout the Navy, and as a warrant officer, I went to the Air Force for the year on exchange on the F-111 program. I talked about that in a previous situation. And I had assignments that were very early in my career as an officer, which gave me a big advantage over my cohorts, because as previous listed LDO, I had positions as department heads, and I had positions in different squadrons way ahead of my time. So I'd like to start from the time that I became an ensign. I found out when I was with the Air Force that I had been selected for a lieutenant, junior grade, a year earlier, so I only had to spend 16 days as an ensign, and I was a JG. From there, I went to my first assignment as a regular officer, limited duty, LDO, loud, dumb, and obnoxious, and checked into the squadron, and I had been in at least 6 different squadrons prior to that, as the maintenance chief, as an E7 and E8, and tours as a department head in Sigonella, Sicily, as a warrant officer, and as the exchange tour with the Air Force. So they considered me a pretty seasoned lieutenant. And when I got into the one command, which was a shore duty billet in Naval Aviation Engineering Service Unit, I was a young lieutenant, and that was a lieutenant commander's billet. After I was there, and a lieutenant for 2 years, they early promoted me 2 years to lieutenant commander. So I got the pay and the uniform, but I had to be reselected for lieutenant commander when my year group came up. Fortunately, I was reselected. That gave me then a couple of more department head tours, and it allowed me to progress on to better and more advancement opportunities. Navy officers are provided with a rounded career. They like to say you have to have a rounded career, and it starts the day you become an officer. And the billets that you go to, you have to learn how to manage people, manage technical jobs, and be outstanding in performance in your own level. And to give you the training that you need to excel, you've got to have a variety of ship, shore, and various staff, ashore and afloat commands. You have to do inspection tours and training organizations at the I, the O, and the intermediate levels. And all of this as you progress up from one rank to the next. Now, from ensign to admiral, you are constantly given opportunities. You're assigned a detailer. The detailer's job, along with the commanding officer in your particular squadron or ship or organization, guides you and puts you in positions so that you can learn your trade, so that you're not overloaded, but it gives you the chance to have authority over all of the enlisted personnel and help solve some of their family problems or their sometimes drinking problems or problems with managing their money and things like that. In addition to that, you've got to learn your own specialty. So if you're a pilot, you've got to go through basic training and advanced training, and then you've got to go to another year and a half of training, and you're obligated for 6 years. Each time you get promoted, you're obligated for the period of time, basically, to the next promotion cycle. And the promotion cycle is determined by Congress. How many lieutenant commanders you can have in the Navy, and how many of them can be in certain skills. And that causes sometime for some skills to take longer periods of time to get promoted. In other skills where they got shortages of pilots and everything, or navigators, you get into there and you can be early selected up to 1 to 2 years in advance if you're lucky enough to get a billet where they're short of the people, and you can become work in the next upper pay grade. So it's up to you. What do you want to do? Now, the fastest way to get promoted is never turn a hard job down. When the detailer calls you up and he says, okay, I've got a shipboard tour that's going to depart, and they're going to go to Westpac, and you're going to be out there on the ship for 3 years, on and off, and you can work your way up in the squadron or the ship. Or I've got another detail. You can go to a shore duty staff and be on a staff, and you'd be the errand boy for the CO or the admiral or whoever. Or you can go to a training command and you can go back and teach. So there's a variety of jobs, and he'll give you a choice of 1 and 4. So if you want to really excel, you take the hard job. Go to sea in a combat, preferably squadron, in a combat situation, and you're going to be out there for 3 years. And if you say, well, I've got little kids and I really don't want to go that long and everything, give me a short tour someplace, and I'll take a junior job, and as my kids grow up, then I'll take the harder ones. Well, the harder ones at the next level, you're not receiving the training and stuff that you really need. So then he might say, well, do you want to go to a factory and work with the engineers and stuff there? Well, that sounds wonderful, but if you're being reviewed for the next promotion, and your peers have been to sea and have been charged with harder jobs, and you selected the one to be with the family in a soft billet, you've just put yourself in the lower promotional group. So they give you this opportunity. If you're a golden boy, like what we like to refer to at the time, Ringknocker, you went to the academy, you come out of the academy, and while you're in the academy, they tell you that the best thing to do is go to sea, learn your job, do best, and put your all into it. Family comes second.